Louis Hine began working for the National Child Labor Committee in 1908. The committee was an organization of private individuals which advocated the abolishment of child labor through legislation in the United States. This picture of a child in a mill in New England is an example of the result of Hine's labors. It shows a young girl posed before the equipment of a textile factory somewhere in New England. How did he do this? What was so wonderful about Hine was his ability to act, to mimic, to trick the office managers, the warehouse managers, so that he could gain entrance to mills. Sometimes he posed as a Bible salesman. Sometimes he posed as an insurance salesman or industrial photographer. He would enter the work situation and from the buttons on his vest would establish a child's height. So very carefully, very quickly, he would pose the child, and once the photograph was taken, he would interview them extensively so that the information that he would then pass on to his superiors at the committee would essentially substantiate that children under the age of 14 were employed in situations where they shouldn't have been employed.
Esta foi a primeira visão da América. Eles pensavam ter chegado à Terra Prometida. De 1903 a 1913, milhões de imigrantes desembarcam no porto de Nova York. Eles vêm do leste europeu, deixando tudo para trás, a fim de tentar a sorte do outro lado do Atlântico. Para a maioria, o sonho americano vira um pesadelo. Vivendo em habitações insalubres, eles passam fome e são explorados. Para sobreviver, toda a família precisa trabalhar. Segundo o censo de 1910, 2 milhões de crianças entre 10 e 15 anos dão duro nas fábricas, minas e plantações por mais de 10 horas por dia. Foi preciso esperar o ano de 1938 para que uma lei nacional sobre o trabalho infantil surgisse nos Estados Unidos. Criado em 1904, o Comitê Nacional do Trabalho na Infância usa as fotos de Louis Hine para sensibilizar a opinião pública. Quase um século depois, a organização continua lutando contra o trabalho infantil e o engajamento de Hine serve de modelo.
Those photographs were taken by the National Child Labor Committee and put on exhibit in exhibits around the country in many different cities from San Francisco to New York, but they also appeared in newspapers and they appeared in publications so that hundreds of thousands of Americans became aware of child labor for the very first time. It was those 8 years of Louis Hine's work that brought that shocking reality before the American public. So much so that by the end of the second decade of this century, many states had already passed child labor law, and by 1938, the federal government passed the first federal child labor law. And today we also, at the National Child Labor Committee, continue to use photography and the media for our message. You can see photographs in a book that we helped to do about children today. These are pictures of children in the fields, working, picking the fruits and vegetables that Americans put on their table every day. There are hundreds of thousands of children like this, and we need a Louis Hine to help document it. Unfortunately, most Americans aren't aware of it, and the National Child Labor Committee today competes with so many other images and so many other social issues that are being photographed and put on television that we don't get the attention that we were able to gain some 90, 80 years ago.
Sociólogo de formação, Louis Hine considera a fotografia uma ferramenta pedagógica e não uma arte. Para Dale Kaplan, que escreveu um livro sobre sua obra, ele é o primeiro documentarista social do século e seu exemplo criou escola.
Hine was, in a sense, a photographer for hire, but what he brought to his job was a vision. This shy, bird-like man never studied photography, but he was a humanist. His purpose generally was to humanize social issues, to give social issues a face, an identity, so that the public would not be afraid of these abstract problems, but could identify somewhat with the subject. His principal contribution was to combine picture and text in a new form of visual communication called photojournalism. He coined the term photo story at a time when picture essays were first being introduced into the popular and progressive press.